Okay. So you should be able to see my screen now. We'll go briefly around the questions. Give me just one moment. Okay. So I'll start in the order of appearance. The first question was for Matt Santamouris. Matt has already answered in writing for the mortality rate versus temperature about the information. So I'm copying it here as well. Second question for Matt. At what government or private level can most proposed investments to counter local increase in high temperatures be implemented? Is it reasonable to assume that the local regional authorities are in the better position to intervene?
Yeah. Depends on the organization of each country and the transfer, let's say, of responsibilities between the various degrees of governance. So it is very difficult to say and to reply in a universal or global way. I think that it is much better, that all three have to play a role. In my opinion, as it concerns, let's say, energy poverty, the role of regional governments is crucial because they know the problem and they can intervene. But on the other hand, they need to have, let's say, the proper investments allocated by the global governments. Also, as it concerns local climatic change, this is very important to understand that the role of regional government is extremely important because they know where to intervene, they know, let's say, what is the impact, and they know the place where the problem persists and how they have really to intervene. But on the other hand, you cannot leave the whole, let's say, action into the hands of the local government. Why? Because it's not just a technical problem, it is more than that. For example, if in the next 30 years we invest in Europe about, let's say, the very modest scenario, 15 trillion of euros, let's say, to renovate our buildings in order to have a 70-75% of CO2 emissions reduction. This means that these 15 trillion euros have to enter into the market. And the way that this money will be, let's say, distributed, the way that this money will be allocated to the different groups, the way that the different, let's say, social layers will absorb and will benefit from that, it's a political problem. Actually, if, let's say, in order to have just €1 in the lower 25% of the low-income population in Europe, 150 euros have to be invested in the global economy. It means that a very small fraction of the investments is coming to the lower income community. So in case that we decide to invest in order to, let's say, amortize climatic change, decrease energy consumption, and eradicate energy poverty, it is very crucial in order not only to solve the technical problem, but on the other hand, really to achieve some equity in the continent and also offer the necessary conditions to the whole population or most of the population to benefit, from such actions. So it is a political problem, a strong political problem that has to be considered, let's say, by national governments or even by the European Union and cannot be left just to the local governments.
Very good, thank you very much. I will address the questions to the people for whom they were addressed as I understood them, but in case somebody else from the panelists wants to intervene, please simply unmute yourselves and add to the replies. So next question for Geoffrey Van Moeseke. Integration of ventilative cooling in the Belgian regulation seems possibly restrictive. Do you believe that there is sufficient room and incentive for innovative approaches, whether new technologies or applications?
Okay, thank you for the question. Well, in fact, it will be much less restrictive than before, because before these changes, there is strictly no place for ventilative cooling. So it's one step further for sure. To go further, it's quite difficult to answer, because what kind of innovative approaches do the one who has the question have in mind? About in new or innovative technologies regarding ventilative cooling, I might think about everything that is about automatization of the windows, operable windows, dramatic things, and certainly there's no room for that right now in the integration of ventilative cooling. In fact, all manual and automatic systems are considered as one, the same way. So there's no room there's no entity for that kind of technologies right now. It could be one step further, but regarding entities, in fact, it's rather on the level of requirements. Although we have now included ventilative cooling in the 15 kWh per square meter requirement, which is now mandatory in the Brussels area, is so severe that you will have to use ventilative cooling in your buildings. There's barely no way to avoid it. So there is incentive, but there's no place right now for strictly innovative approaches, the way I understand those approaches. Does that answer?
Very good. I think you gave a very good answer also in the first part, that indeed the Belgian regulation actually is less restrictive than in the past. So this is, I think, a very important factor. Very good. Moving on to the question for Jarek Kurnitski. It seems indeed remarkable that so many apartments in the sample and in a northern country such as Estonia are in risk of overheating. Do you see some additional measures that could be integrated in future updates of the building code that could reduce this risk, or would compliance with the present code be enough?
Well, yes, this might to be seen remarkable, but you need to consider that solar angle is low in north, and when it is very easy that the buildings will be overheated indeed. But basically, I think this regulation is just very new. That's the problem. It has not yet established as a common practice, and to improve the situation, authorities need to do more verification and inspection, commissioning activities. I think this is the most important. So basically, it belongs to the building code, a part of energy performance, which needs to be revised in every 5 years. So when the next revision will go, we will suggest some improvements, but these are related to the calculation methodology and are mainly calculation details, how to make this methodology more transparent and more easily understood to everybody. So basically, I think this methodology works very well, and it just needs to be better implementation in the practice.
Okay, thank you very much. Very good. And again, if any of the other panelists want to intervene, please do so. In the meantime, I will proceed with the last question. Is for Theonika Alesi. So, in what percentage of range do you consider values identical? I imagine this has to do with the sensitivity of the tests that you did. I imagine that identical is not, let's say, to 0.001. So it depends, of course, on the measurement. Theonika?
Yeah. Okay. If I understand well, it has to do. It doesn't have to do with the measurements. It has to do with the identical values concerning the reliability with EPC input data about the frames, the values of frames, insulation, and solar collectors. So here, when we say identical, we mean exactly the same. We compared the value from the initial EPC before the implementation of the interventions, which has to do with the design values as it was proposed, and we did the comparison with the the values implemented. So we did a very precise control here. So when we say identical, we mean exactly the same. That's why one could say that these percentages are rather low, but in fact they're not, because we did a very careful check with exactly the same values. The values, the design values with the implementation values. So when we say identical, we mean exactly the same.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I think we don't have any more questions as far as I can see. And I see that we've also surpassed the time that we had planned for the webinar. So let me just move to my presentation as well for the end. Okay, thank you everybody for being with us today. And all panelists and all organizations that contributed to this webinar. And the presentations will be online in a couple of weeks in the QUALICHeCK website, QUALICHeCKplatform.eu. Please don't hesitate to send us any additional questions that you might have after the webinar through the communication form in the QUALICHeCK platform website, and we will be happy to pass them on to the speakers. So thank you very much again, and looking forward to see you in one of our future webinars. Thank you.